Well, it's time for us to get an update on what's happening at Faith Community Church in Red Oak on this cool Thursday morning, February the 6th. And Pastor Dave McDonald's with us. Pastor, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Jerry.
How are you?
Well, I'm warmer now than it was a few moments ago.
Little crisp out there coming in.
You know, I grew up in Arizona, and we thought when it hit in the low 40s, we were freezing. And coming out here to this here winterland wonder, it's just a little different. It's funny when the temperature gets up to 40 now, I feel like I'm in balmy springtime weather. Want to get out my shorts and sit in my lounge chair and catch some rays. So how life changes.
So you didn't get to make snow angels when you were a kid?
You know, the first time I ever saw it snow, I was a junior in high school living in
Is that
Tucson,
right?
Arizona. And I still remember the scenery of snowflakes falling around our saguaro cactus. And we thought it was amazing. We got almost a full half inch.
Huh.
And I had to get up at 2 in the morning to see it. And by 8, there was just little sprinkles of white left. But that was, I could not believe that amazing thing called snow.
Junior in high school.
Yes, sir.
Before you saw snow.
I'd driven up to a car up to the mountains and seen snow on the ground before.
Yeah.
So I should say saw it actually snowing. But I'd only seen snow one other time in my life. And that was just kind of on the side of the road, you know, after things have warmed up, and tried to make a snowball. And it was that road's ice pack kind of thing where it sat a few days and heated up and then got cold at night. And so I remember thinking when I first saw that, boy, I don't know how you make snowballs. That's a lot of hard work. You got to bring an ice pick to get it done. Mm-hmm. So now I understand.
Pastor Dave McDonald, pastor of Faith Community Church, north on 8th Street here in Red Oak. Been here for 20 years.
Not quite as long as your faithful service here. I've been here, I'm in my 19th year now. I started in 1995, the end of 1995.
Soon going to be 20 years.
Soon going to be 20, sooner than I can imagine. I remember coming here 2 months before I was going to turn 40, and I thought turning 40 meant I was 2 weeks away from being dead, because 40 was just as old as the hills and twice as dusty. And now here I am, a little past 40, and I'm thinking that's kind of young.
A fun favorite wintertime memory with your girls would be?
Well, snow. I mean, I pastored in northern Wisconsin, so we had snow. And our house, we lived in the parsonage. It was on the complex where the church was. So we had like a fairly long walk from the house to the church. It was a pretty big land layout. And so in the winter, when you had that sub-zero wind, it wasn't worth starting the car to go that short distance, but the walk over, you had to have everything. So when it snowed, we made snow tunnels. Just winter stuff was fun with the kids. They love my Melissa, who's now still just as adventurous as ever, would be the first one out when it was snowing, building something and just having fun out there. So yeah, lots of wintertime memories. We weren't much at skiing. We liked to cross-country ski, because we could go down the hill from our parsonage into the state park where they had grooms cross-country ski trails. So my first few years here in Red Oak, we actually would still strap on our cross-country skis and go down the middle of the road during a snowstorm. But we got enough strange looks, and my girls outgrew their cross-country skis, so we didn't do that anymore.
Now you can cross-country down the trails over there.
Yes, you can.
Speaking of which, we had some discussion about that a few weeks back as to why they weren't cleared so people could walk, and I was told that the design was intentional to let them be snow covered so that people could cross-country ski on those if they wanted to.
Is that right?
And I was told that Wayne Donahue has done that, as a matter of fact.
Because you go down on, what would that be, the north side of the cemetery, and you do that sort of wind around,
Yeah.
and you're going downhill in cross countries. You don't want to build up too much of a head of steam before you have to do some slalom-like moves.
Yeah, about that first tree, I'd be all done, I think.
Well,
the good thing is it's close to the hospital.
Well, there you go. And I found what I was good at cross-country ski. If you got me on top of a hill, I could beat everyone downhill. You got my inertia going, and in fact, I actually made new trails that way.
No doubt.
I did.
Skis were about 50 feet down from the top, but you slid all the way to the bottom.
You know, my skis always got there ahead of me, but, it was fun. It was fun.
Beat everybody down the hill.
I did. Of course, no one wanted to be in front of me when I was in the middle of going downhill, so...
One thing about winter weather is we don't want to risk getting students, or even adults for that matter, out when the weather's bad and very cold and potentially dangerous. So we do miss some activities.
Yeah, we do. And of course, we took that into consideration. I canceled our Financial Peace University, which will happen next Tuesday. And this was one, Jerry. It's right in the middle of our course where we do open it up again for visitors because Dave Ramsey talks on dumping debt. So that'll be next Tuesday. And folks, anyone's invited Tuesday night, 7 o'clock at the church. And you don't have to be a part of FP. You don't have to agree to do anything. It's a good kind of like guest lecture from Ramsey about how we can manage debt better, and anyone's welcome. So we had to cancel that. And then, of course, Wednesday, we canceled all of our things for that very reason, Jerry. It's not just snow and blow. It's we have a large percentage of our kids come from outside of Red Oak. So you imagine a flat tire 2 miles out of town, and you have to step outside. And we have some wonderful older adults who help minister to our children and our youth, and we just don't want to take the chance.
But you're telling me on Tuesday the 11th, anybody can come to FPU?
I can. In fact, you and I spoke a few weeks ago, and I may have misspoke because I did say once FPU gets into week 3, we kind of close it because really you can't start out cold in week 3 and really pick up enough to understand where you're at. However, what I had forgotten was when we come to the dumping debt session, that's kind of just a one-time open to all, and Ramsey explains to us about really our attitude about debt and how some of our thinking about debt is we assume there's a normalcy to debt, that you're going to get into debt, it's unavoidable. The reality is, except for major considerations like a home where, yes, you're going to have a mortgage, but of course there's great wisdom in making sure your mortgage and what you wind up owing on that home is no more than 25% of your total take-home pay. So there's some obvious wisdom there. But yes, you're going to have debt with the house. But just about everything else in your life, and maybe at times, Jerry, there are some medical dynamics that, of course, turn into debt because they're significant. But most of the debt we choose to put on ourselves, and we do choose to do it ourselves. We have the same as cash, 90 days, same as cash. There's lots of offers to let you know you can save this much if you borrow that much. But we are in debt because we choose to be. And sometimes it happens because of emergencies we're not prepared for. And we have to deal in that emergency. We have to pay for it. We don't have the funds set aside. So, of course, debt happens. Other times we get into debt simply because we see something we want. We've not prepared for it, and we buy it on impulse. Sure enough, it's in our house that night. But those payments often last longer than the thing we got excited about buying. Because by the time we pay that off, there's been 2 newer models of the latest and greatest of whatever we bought, and we're kind of feeling outdated, or our car is old enough now that it's starting to show the signs of wear of a car that's been used. And so debt becomes, if we're not careful, the Bible talks about how debt can become our master, and we become the slave. And obviously my desire is that we at least are aware that really there's no point in our life where our money should be telling us what to do. I know life hits, emergencies hit. I get that. I have been there. But there are times when you need to remember, wait a minute, there's nothing evil about money. A dollar bill can only do good or bad based on what I decide to do with it. But if I suddenly have these big long lists of have-to-pays, and I've only got so much money here, suddenly I'm a slave to what I owe. So Ramsey will talk about in the dumping debt lesson how you don't have to be there. And it takes some work if you find yourself in that tunnel like I was, but you can come out of it and get to the place where last week Connie and I had been saving up and we bought a new TV. It's the first time we've paid money for a TV, and I cannot remember when. But we got the one we wanted, and we had the money set aside, and we got it. And it's in our downstairs room getting ready for tonight's opening exercises of the Olympics, because we become TV-aholics at 2 times a year. March Madness and then some big sporting events. But when the Olympics come on, oh my, we love that. So we've got it hooked up, and I owe nothing on it.
So the FPU session that will be next Tuesday night, is that the one that would have been this?
It would have been this last Tuesday, and of course,
we just slide them back then.
Right, and you and I had to cancel with you last Thursday, so I wasn't able to tell people. So, without getting too convoluted in my explanation, did you like that word, convoluted? Yeah. Isn't that kind of cool? I'm pretty smart, you know.
What does it mean?
I have no idea. It means I'm not sure what I'm saying. I'm able to let people know that it is next Tuesday, and anyone in the public's welcome. And you need to know, you won't be asked to continue We won't even have our dates for our next FPU yet arranged. So there's no pressure on you. You can just come and experience that and then go about your business. But we will make it a little bit more user-friendly that night so the regulars who are in the middle of their FPU still benefit by what they're doing. But I'll have a special time with those of you that are just there that night. We're not going to be asking you to do a thing, just giving you information. Jerry, you're and my grandparents, when they wanted something, they saved up for it. That was assumed. It never occurred to them that you would borrow. When Sears Roebuck started, in their opening documents, they said to borrow is folly. So this concept of borrowing is a normal part of life is actually not normal. Just because more do it than don't, that doesn't make it right. And when you get to the place where you're looking at the end of your money and you still have bills, and maybe even some out there, Jerry, getting those terrible phone calls I got from collection agencies and places trying to intimidate me to not eat and pay their bill, that's not the way it's supposed to be. So if we can help in any little way, that's all we're about.
Now, if they come Tuesday night on the 11th and decide that that's beneficial to them, they still can't get in this program.
They cannot get in this program because it would be unfair
Right.
to them.
Right.
In fact, you're getting me to think, Jerry. I think I just had a brain shower. Not quite enough to be a brainstorm. I will have a certificate that night that I will have available. So if a guest comes and they decide they want to attend the next one, I will hand certificates out that'll save them $25 off the cost of the kit. Now, again, we won't know the date, and it'll be up to them to commit to that future date and bring that certificate in. But if they do that, I'll knock $25 off.
Brain shower?
Brain shower. It wasn't quite enough to be a brainstorm. It's kind of a brain shower.
I was going to say, in your case, more brain tracer rather than shower.
Maybe
Sprinkle.
more of a brain fog.
Sprinkle or even fog, yeah.
There you go.
Haze, maybe a haze.
That's better.
Shower,
That's
I would say.
better.
That'd be
That's
really
right.
overwhelming.
You should hear what I'm thinking. I'll tell you, it's brilliant stuff.
I'm sure
It just loses translation when it comes out of my mouth. I
yeah.
don't know why that is.
So anyway, a great opportunity next Tuesday night.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and anyone come, Jerry.
There's
And,
no
and
charge, no
no
obligation,
no charge.
commitment required.
No, and we want to make sure, because sometimes when it's in a church building, there's kind of an assumption that maybe there are hooks in place to try and get you to come to something else or be a part of something more. Or, at the door, we're going to sell you the latest and greatest. And we are so not that way that we've actually had people holler at us, I leave this thing you had. I had nowhere to leave an offering. I had no information about what's next. I had nothing to know what you do around here. And our attitude is, that's because if you want to know, you can call and ask. But we are glad to have you come through our doors, serve you, and then you go about your business. If we can serve you in the future, terrific. And we'd love to, but we're not going to, we're not going to come across like the salesman that lives on commission and is nice to you, but in the whole time they're being nice, they're hoping they're going to get something from you. We'd rather just be nice to you and expect nothing, because that's the way Jesus did it. He just loved people for who they were, and we don't want to suddenly love people because they might give us something.
What are you going to do for Connie for Valentine's Day?
Well, I think she's going to leave me. It's grandparent time. Actually, we have an adorable little girl in our church that singles Connie out every Sunday, and she gets snuggles. But I noticed as she's getting snuggles with this lovely little girl, she's starting to get that grandmotherly twinkle in her eye. So I think Valentine's Day, I'm going to let her be up north 8 hours, cuddling the grandkids.
Very good.
So that's what I'll be doing for Valentine's Day. By the way, I just got a note from my lovely Connie to not to remind, but to ask, ladies and gentlemen out there in the listening audience, we need brooms. My Connie is in the midst of developing the 2014 Winter Olympic Games for our high schoolers. There's going to be a rink. The rink is not going to be for ice dancing, nor for individual ice display, or for anything to do with skating. It will, however, involve ice bowling. We already have the bowling pins. And there's lots of winter activities, and one of the activities is going to be a broom hockey, and we need brooms. So if you have a broom that you can give, we don't want to borrow brooms, and actually you can imagine with that kind of hockey, the tighter, kind of the broom that's been worn out and is kind of down to the stub is better than those beautiful new wide sweeping ones. So if you've got a broom, come on by the church or give the church a call at 623-3472. We'd love to get get brooms, and if you can call us, we'll either come and pick it up or we'll figure out a way to have you get it to us. But we need brooms for our teenagers so they can play in the Winter Olympic Games of Red coming up in just a few short weeks.
Number they can call if they have a broom
Would be the church at 623-3472. In fact, that's a great way to call to get any information, Jerry. Financial Peace coming up on next Tuesday, where anyone's invited. Next Monday on the 9th is our next Mothers of Preschool. And our Mothers of Preschool, if you are an expecting mom, expecting your first child, or all the way to your last child finishing up kindergarten, you are a mother of preschooler. And now next Monday night on the 10th from 6 to 8 at Faith Community, you can join the ladies in their MOPS program. We have childcare for your preschool-age children. It's well-run, terrific volunteers. And the theme of next Monday night's MOPS is going to be Healthy Meals in a Hurry. And that's an awesome title because that's probably a good motto for all of our lives. We want to be healthy, and we want to be healthy in a hurry because our schedules, we just have so much to do. So you're going to be given some solid tools, moms, on how to make sure those meals are healthy so you don't just get something high in preservatives and stick it in boiling water. So that's next Monday, February 10th, at 6 o'clock at Faith Community Church down in the lower level over by Radcliffe on the north side of our building, over on the northwest side. You can come in off Radcliffe or come in off 8th, top of the hill, and come on down, moms, and we would love to see you there.
That's Monday, February the 10th.
That's Monday, February the 10th. That's next Monday.
Who's doing the presentation?
You know, it doesn't say so here, and I don't know. And don't laugh, Jerry. I don't appreciate that. I bet I could ask you stuff you wouldn't know either, like who's buried in Grant's tomb. I bet you don't know that.
Have a clue.
Okay. I rest my case. I'm not sure who. I know Randy works hard to get people who are good in that area to speak on it, so I'm going to guess someone who knows how to do healthy meals.
I'm sorry.
I know it's not me, okay?
I'm sorry I brought it up.
Boy,
I
I thought it was going to be grilled. I don't know if I'd come.
give somebody
A little
credit.
touchy here, but I don't like looking dumb.
I thought
Would you think after all these years?
you'd be used to it, I would think, but you know,
I would be comfortable with it.
since it still makes you uncomfortable.
What could I say? What could I say?
Big missionary event coming up, isn't
Well,
there?
we are, Jerry. You know, most people don't know this about Faith Community, but we are our denomination is called Christian and Missionary Alliance, and we were founded back in the late 1800s by a man who was passionate to reach the immigrant coming into our countries, especially in New York where he pastored. And from there that became an alliance of Christians who came from various denominations to meet for the purpose of reaching the immigrant. But then also from that group, some would be called later to go overseas. And you got to remember in the late 1800s, missionary service was a whole different way. I mean, we've got a group of young people going for a week to Dominican Republic this summer, and that's doable. But back then, you'd hop aboard a ship with all your belongings. In fact, the first 18 that would go to Africa as missionaries, only 2 would see their first anniversary alive. So the Alliance, Christian Mission Alliance, has always been passionate about missions. We actually have several countries where we have more people attending church there than we do in our churches in the U.S. We are the only accepted Christian denomination in Vietnam. All that means is we're just passionate about sharing Christ overseas. And so what we do is once a year, well, way more than once a year, but once a year we do a specific missions focus. And we're going to actually be inviting the Hoskins family. They have been what we call marketplace missionaries, which means they go overseas and serve. So they're not missionaries. So they're just ministers. They're just caring, and they're just doing work in a business and doing their best to be a people of integrity to serve wherever country they are in a good way. And we're going to be blessed to have them in our missions conference, and they're going to share with us what it's like to work in businesses overseas and what it's like to be a Christ follower while doing the business you've been given to do well. And that's going to be coming up on February 16th on a Sunday, and it'll run for several nights. We're going to have an M&M night, Missions and Me night. In fact, this Sunday, Jerry, this Sunday coming up on the 8th, would that be right on the 9th? we're going to be having two of our own people share about their short-term missions experience. Shauna Olson and her trip to the Indian Reservation, ministering with the veterinary service that goes to the Indian Reservation and simply cares for their animals in the name of Christ. And then Dennis and Sue Tillman are going to be sharing about their missions trip to Guatemala. And they've been on several missions trips, both in Ecuador and over in Indonesia. And so they're going to be sharing. And so this Sunday, we're just going to hear from some of our own who have done that short-term missions experience.
Very good.
Yeah, so we're very missions-minded, and we love it.
Some great opportunities.
And we also tell people, Jerry, you can be a missionary where you are, right where you're at, because missionary doesn't mean you have to put on a, funny-looking pith helmet and hack your way through the brush. You can be a missionary in your school, in your neighborhood, in your workplace, just by being a person who loves Jesus, keeping your word, thinking before you speak, and don't let the world around you squeeze you into a mold you don't belong into.
Does that mean you won't be preaching this Sunday then? I'm just wondering if we're going to need extra
I refuse
chairs.
to answer under the grounds that it might incriminate me. Actually, I won't be. I'll be giving just a little short follow-up, but appreciate your kindness in pointing that out. And no doubt there'll be huge crowds.
I just, I think people kind of like to know, some people kind of like to know, expect what's going to happen when they get there.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Try and get out of this one. I'm not handing you a shovel to help you either.
I wanted Connie to know she'll probably need to put out some extra chairs this Sunday morning.
I think you're right. Actually, some of my best compliments come on Sundays where I don't preach.
Good crowds for the early services, though. A lot of people are coming.
Oh, my goodness. In fact, we're going to be doing our annual meeting, Jerry, in a couple weeks as a church. And I don't really pay attention to numbers, but I looked at what our average was last year for the whole year. And it's like 8 less or 8 more than what was in attendance last Sunday first service. So our first service lately has been about the size of our average for both services last year. So yeah, it's filling up, and our ushers are working hard to make sure people have places to sit. We're asking our regulars if they can sit a little farther up front because we want to make it visitor friendly. But yeah, it's just been kind of fun to see that happen.
And there is not an emphasis on numbers at Faith Community, but every person, every number represents a soul and a heart and somebody that either loves Jesus or needs to.
You've said it just perfect, Jerry, because there's always an emphasis on numbers if we remember that the number 1 equals a person, and every person is important to God. Every person, God so loved that person that he sent his only son Jesus to die on the cross for their sins. So every one is huge, but we want to fight the thinking that the bottom line of successful ministry has a numerical attachment to it. Either you get a lot of money or you get a lot of people. Certainly money and people can be an indication that things are healthy and good, but this is God's work, and there are things about what God does that you can't put on a piece of paper and say, when this always happens, this is what it always means. Only God can change a heart. We can set the stage. We can develop good programs. We can have dedicated men and women serving. We can present truth in such a way that you at least can understand what's being presented. But what you do with it is entirely up to you, and only God can do that internal work. So numbers are important, and yet numbers aren't important, if that makes sense.
This Sunday, so will we do the same missionary presentations in each of the services?
Yes, Jerry. In fact, each service, our 9 o'clock and our 10:45 service, are identical. And we're growing in our second service, too. And I always tell folks it's a little bit roomier there. So with the idea of coming in and you kind of needing to find a seat because it's a little crowded, I mean, you will find a place to sit, period. And you will not be uncomfortable. But if maybe you're not a crowd person, you'd love second service, a little bit roomier. We have about 80-ish people there. And room. You can just kind of stretch out. And yes, it's the identical service both. And those that are going to be sharing will be sharing in both services. So it's not like you're getting warmed over leftovers for the second service. It's if you come in, you will experience what people in the first service experienced.
Will we go to a third service or add on to the building?
Boy, that is the question that actually this year we are grappling with. Obviously, it would appear if we were to go to prepare to grow, another service would make more financial sense than adding on in our economy. We are out of debt as a church. We realize that if we decide to build someday, there will be some debt involved in building, but our goal would be that when everything is said and done, if there is debt left, it's very manageable and quickly eliminated, as opposed to we want to build $1 million something, so we're going to go out and borrow 950,000 of it. We're not going to do that. But Jerry, very insightful of you, and we are actually praying and asking God's direction about a third service. And one of the options we've wondered about is maybe doing a later Sunday service, like maybe around 5:30, or 6, which would be identical to what we do in the morning. So it would not be the old-time Sunday evening service, but it would be the same thing in the evening. We are encountering younger couples that are telling us, Sunday's the only day we can be with family in the morning because it's go, go, go. And they do fight to come to church, but there's a lot of times when they say it's just better for us to be at home. And we tell them, if you're telling me this is your chance to be together as a family, you be together as a family. I think church is important, and you cannot flourish well without a church family. But I'm not about to spend my family getting that done. So, Jerry, we're wondering, would that be an option? It'd be a lot of work for our staff and our people to make that happen. But we are praying, would that be the way to go? In fact, folks, just for the fun of it, if you like that, why don't you call the church office at 3472, and you don't have to be coming to our church and say, I heard what Pastor Dave said, and just thought you ought to know. I think that's a great idea, because at some point we're going to have to decide. I don't see an earlier service working. We once tried an earlier service, and we'll get some of those wonderful early birds out, or some people that have just pulled a late shift through the hospital come, and we loved that. But if we're thinking of, Jerry, I want to do the third service not because we're running out of room. I want to do a third service because we need to reach new people. One of the byproducts is it'll help maybe some people reroute their attendance patterns and give us a little more breathing room. But my bottom line is not, I want to say this carefully. I want everyone who calls Faith Community their home to be comfortable, but I'll always be primarily motivated by that person we've yet to reach, because that's just what the gospel tells me to do. It's good news, needs to be told. But what we find is God usually does both. If we do his heart, we are more comfortable, and new people here. Boy, you're asking good questions today. Are you doing okay? You're worrying me a little. You started out your same old mean self toward me, and now you've gotten insightful. I'm just a little nervous.
In New Testament times,
Yes,
did they go to the church building on?
Well, when the church first was born in Acts, there were not church buildings. They met together, and the fellowship was dynamic. And Jerry, today there are a lot of people that are now doing what are called home churches. And in some environments, that is quite potent. And I'm a fan of anything that helps people find Christ and helps us grow and mature in our faith. And I know I'm growing and maturing when I act the same way toward people who won't give me anything in return as I act toward people who will give me something in return. That, to me, is integrity.
Say that again now, if you can remember.
If I treat people that I'm not going to get anything back. I'm not going to get notice. I'm not going to get validation. I'm not going to get thanked. I'm not going to get recognized. If I treat them the same way I treat someone who can get me something back, whether it's affirmation or, a bigger paycheck or whatever, if I treat everyone the same way, that to me is integrity. And so that's what makes the church and those who follow Christ dynamic. I think churches can do a lot more than smaller groups can do. And I think a celebration on a Sunday morning, there's nothing like it. However, if I'm going to really get down deep, I've got a smaller group of people I'm going to be with. Jesus spoke to hundreds and thousands. He had about 72 that were in his closer group. He had 12 that were called his apostles, and he had 3 within that were really his inner core. So as you work your way smaller, you can go deeper. But there is something about a Sunday morning celebration with people you look out over the congregation, you see people from all walks of life, some who have known church their whole growing up years, others who are brand new. Every now and then someone comes and talks to me and uses the kind of language that I hope some people don't overhear. in a sanctuary, frankly, doesn't offend me in the tiniest. I just love the fact that they're there and they don't realize they're not being correct. They're just sharing. I love that whole dynamic from those that would wish I wore more of a robe of maybe a high church kind of a bishopy appearance, those that maybe wish I'd wear sandals, and everything in between. So that's the body of Christ. That's the church. That's what makes it so cool. No cookie cutters.
All right, what else is happening, ongoing or upcoming, that we'd want our people to be aware of?
Well, Jerry, I think that's it. There's going to be a ladies' create night this Friday night at 7 o'clock. If you want more information on that, ladies, you're going to be doing some stretchy T-shirt stuff, and that's all I know about that. You can call the church at 623-3472. You know about emission stuff. You've heard about the youth coming up Olympics. Every Wednesday night we have our Shout program, grades 5 and 6. It starts at 4. Our jump program that starts from ages 3 to grades 4 at 6:30, and our exit program that starts from grades 7 through 12 at 7. There's always something going on. Jerry, you can go to redoakfaith.org to our website and see what's going on new there, what's coming up. And if we can serve you, let us know.
Very good. Always nice to visit with you.
Well, it is always a delight, and I do tease you, but you are insightful.
You certainly do.
Yeah, I certainly do. But you ask good questions and pray with us that we will always do what God wants us to do as a church. Our goal is not to survive. Our goal is to thrive. And our goal is to share Jesus Christ with people, and the best way you can share him is by your life. And I think of that great old expression, share Christ whenever you can. If necessary, use words.
Update me on the Shenandoah Church.
I was with Pastor Roy, who serves down at the Cornerstone Fellowship there in Shenandoah, which was a church we planted back in the early 2000s, and things just seem to be going fine there. They have an incredible building that they fixed up so beautifully there in the south end of town. I do not know their service times information. We have a group of guys that we hope will be hopping in a van on Saturday and joining them in for a breakfast down there. But it's just a good work. And we are actually in the process of, I'm planning to meet with a pastor from our church in Council Bluffs, and we're praying about where there might be the next place to plant one, and we wonder about Glenwood. And again, we're not interested in competing with the churches that are there. We're not interested in taking people from the churches that are in attendance. We're interested in sharing Christ. And so we would hope to see a whole new possibility. But God will show us, because we're not, God's been giving life and helping babies be born and churches be born since Acts. So he takes care of that stuff. We just want to be faithful and in the right place.
And I guess in conclusion, I would just like to say again that for those folks, and there are, for a multiplicity of reasons, people who have hurting hearts today, some from loss of loved ones, some from financial pressures that they don't know how they're going to deal with. And God cares about all of those things and all of your needs and hurts. And again, he wants to make life better for you.
That's right, Jerry. That's right.
I mean, that's the bottom line. If wherever you are and whatever your needs are, God knows and cares. Mm-hmm. And you have an opportunity through Faith Community Church to visit with Pastor Dave or Brett, and they'll be glad to share with you God's word and principles that truly make a difference in lives. And there is hope out there.
There is, because every one of us, myself, Pastor Brett, every one of us were once changed when we came to the end of ourselves and came to realize we needed a Savior. We didn't need a religion. We didn't need a church. We needed a Savior, someone to rescue us. And it was a decision, Jerry, that no one could make for us. Not even an emotional preacher sharing the presentation could manipulate my emotions enough to make my decision personal. It had to be me. And God, by his gracious, loving Spirit, calling me and inviting me into a relationship. When that happened, the change began. Life doesn't always change on the outside the way I'd like to see it happen, but I was changed on the inside. And to this day, I have a peace that even when everything around me is not peaceful, because peace isn't the absence of conflict. I have peace because of the presence of God. And it's not because I'm a pastor. I don't have a hotline in heaven that others who aren't pastors don't have. I am just a person. I'm just a man. But I have been transformed by the grace of God, and it continues to be an amazing truth to me. And to be able to share that with others, Jerry, is an honor.
Yep. And it's all about God, not about Dave.
No, not at all. In fact, if it's about me, in all humor aside, you'll be disappointed very, very quickly, because I think one of the beauties about the message of the gospel is when you see people who follow Christ and you really get to know them. Like if you get to know me, you're going to realize, and I mean this in all good, I mean this well, you're going to realize, wow, God can change anyone. And you see a bunch of average people transformed by an amazing God, and you realize there's not this great. You don't have to get your life together and your act together and get everything lined up before you come to Christ. You just come as you are.
I am very grateful for people like Present Company that have been truly transformed and changed by the grace of God and the abilities and gifts and talents that He has given you, and then the way that you have expanded on those, and then use it all to bring glory to Him and people to Him, to find what's available through Jesus Christ. That's a joy and a blessing.
It is. I love what I do, and I've heard the definition of a pastor is someone who can't get over the fact that they get paid to do what they love. And I love what I do, and I love being able to tell others what Christ means to me, because it's amazing. It's just great.
It's going to be cold Sunday morning. We're still going to have church?
We're still going to have church because the fellowship is going to be warm. What's our temp going to be on Sunday?
0 to 5 below Sunday morning.
Oh,
and a high Sunday afternoon of around 10 to 12 degrees.
That's a high.
That's the high.
Where I come from, that's not even on a thermometer. Our thermometers stopped at 35. They never went down to 0 because we never even admitted there's such a thing called freezing. So this idea of high to 10, I don't get. That's not a high. That's a low. That's just plain low. That might be the lowest high you get or the highest low you get, but it's just a whole lot south of that 32 point, and I don't agree with none of that.
But you know what?
What?
We'll drive to Shenandoah to do the boys' basketball game Saturday night.
Yes, you will.
And just have a good time and come home when it's 5 below 0. But then Sunday morning, it's so cold to get out. You know what I mean?
Well, you know,
isn't it funny how people's thinking changes sometimes?
Well, it does. It does. I mean, it's like if something's important to me, it's amazing what I can do. And if something's, I'm not so sure, it's amazing how I can wake up with inflammation of the hypochondriac or look at my schedule and decide, I don't want to do it. And you know what? Okay, whatever. If you want to cheat yourself out of an awesome Sunday morning time of celebrating, go ahead. Have that stale toast and your cold coffee. Enjoy yourself. But I want to tell you, there's going to be lively singing. There's going to be incredible stories of what it was like for Shauna to land on that Indian reservation. And they keep asking, why are you doing this? Because they don't trust white people, generally speaking. And Shauna's a petite little cute mom of 3 who, you know, looks about as intimidating as a poodle puppy. And she just says, we do this because we love Jesus and we want to share his love with you. And so now they wait for them to show up. And you'll hear those kinds of amazing stories.
And while I'm all for you coming to Shenandoah on Saturday night to watch the boys play, and
absolutely,
you'll get to see Jeff Heiser and Terry Schmidt and a lot of nice folks there and some outstanding athletes and some great kids. It's nothing like seeing God and Jesus at church on Sunday morning, so I certainly encourage you to do that.
Well, here's where it's at. Saturday night, you need to go and cheer because we don't know the outcome and we want our team to win. I'll let you in a little secret, Jerry. I've read the last pages of the Bible. I know the outcome. I know who wins. So Sunday, we celebrate victory.
That was a wonderful segue. Say goodbye, Jerry.
Goodbye, Jerry.
God bless. Make it a good day.
You too, my friend.
Pastor Dave McDonald from Faith Community Church north on 8th Street in Red Oak, just north of Highway 34. The most important thing is that, again, they really, really diligently follow God's Word, His principles, and His will for their lives. And that's why you'll get a blessing because of God's presence there and the sharing of His Word and the presence of Holy Spirit. So if you are looking for, if there's just a little empty spot in your life or a hurting part in your heart that hasn't been met, boy, I'd sure love to have you come to Faith Community Church on Sunday and let God take care.